Hi, we're the Psychic Twins.
I'm Terry.
And I'm Linda, and we're going to talk about psychic children today. This is the first video of 2 parts. This will be about indigo children.
And the next video, part 2, will be about crystal and rainbow children.
Are you an indigo child, or do you have indigo children? We're going to try to define what that means today.
Indigo is the color of the third eye chakra, which is a cone of energy or an energy center right here. And it's also the color of spiritual abilities. Now, indigos were mostly born between the 1920s and the 1990s, and there was a big wave of indigo children born in the 70s. But most indigo children are adults now.
Indigos are often diagnosed with ADD or ADHD. They have trouble focusing on tasks and school work because they process knowledge and information in a very different way from other people. Often they're slow to learn to speak and slow to speak. We know several indigo children that didn't speak until they were 3 or 4, even 5 years old, and they were brighter than average children too. It's just because they learn differently. They're very high vibration, and they really are star seeds, a lot of them, and so they're really not from this planet originally. They're here to hold a vibration of healing for the planet.
That's right, and they're very rebellious spirits and warrior spirits. We're indigo children, actually. You know, we were always very stubborn and rebellious and, always fighting the status quo. So they're really system busters who are here to change the status quo here on Earth.
Yes, exactly. I mean, they have a strong willfulness, a determination, strong tempers, and that's because they use that anger for fuel to change social systems that are not working. It's very interesting to see, if you know a lot of indigo children, they're the ones that are leading the rallies and the demonstrations against what they feel is not right, inequality of all kinds, racism, homophobia, sexism. And I mean, in our generation, we led those rallies as well. We were part of the earlier generation of indigos that really fought discrimination and injustice. And now we're seeing that wave again with the indigos.
That's right.
This generation.
And also, indigos have a tendency to isolate themselves from others. I know we were always loners and we would be together.
Yeah.
We didn't really need friends that much. We were a club of 2.
Our own club.
Yeah, our own club. Picture like Blue Man Group or the blue figures in Avatar, the blue people. That's what the indigo is. That's what their astral bodies probably look like.
Not all of them will be the ones to lead in the front lines, but if you have any of these qualities we're mentioning, chances are you are an indigo or have some indigo crossover. Indigos, they can sense dishonesty.
You can always tell when people are lying.
Yeah, always. We're human lie detectors. In general, indigos are ushering in a world of integrity and honesty, and they rage against corruption. In general, they're fighting against educational, political systems, corporate systems that are no longer working, that don't really speak for them. They fight against prejudice, racism, sexism, homophobia, and inequality of all types. And that's really why they're here, to help the planet awaken to a new way of being.
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, they're real trailblazers.
Yes.
We always say that we hacked the path with a machete and created a new superhighway so that, the indigos can really pave a new path for people. And, indigos are very communicative. We're very philosophical. Many indigos have psychic abilities, psychic powers, including telepathy and psychic dreams.
Telekinesis. They can move objects. I mean, there's stories all over the world of crystal children and indigo children that can have the power to literally affect their environment in ways that no other person could do many years ago, decades ago. This was really not as common at all. They're being born in droves on the planet now, and crystal children and rainbow children as well.
Well, also, if you're an indigo, you probably have abilities of mediumship. You can see as a child, you might have been able to see invisible beings or spirits of loved ones or pets that have crossed over, and might have had an imaginary playmate, and it's not really imaginary. It's that the indigo children were able to see spirits.
And this is true of crystal children as well. Very many of them will see visions or have psychic dreams. And it's sad because they start off with some of these very strong abilities, but parents and teachers who don't understand that phenomenon will try to sort of beat it out of them, or they'll say, oh, that's silly, it's just your imagination. But these beings very often are living beings in another dimension. They just have a sixth sense and they can see them and sense them.
You know, we had a really interesting experience as psychic children. Actually, we starred in a movie by CBS for the A&E network called Psychic Children. And this was several years ago.
It was like 2005 or 6.
And later it became, a series called Psychic Kids. But, ours was the pilot, and we were very fortunate to be able to talk about being psychic children. And
we had your jelly bean story.
I was just going to tell it, oh, you're psychic.
I must be.
When we were 5 or 6, we walked into our school fair, and this was, East Bradford Elementary School in Westchester, Pennsylvania. Shout out, Westchester represent. And we walked into this school fair, and there was a fortune teller with, the whole get-up and the turban and the crystal ball.
The treasure chest.
And she said, tell me how many jelly beans are in this big jar of jelly beans and you'll win a prize. And I just heard the number 537, and I knew there were 537 jelly beans in the jar. And she said, you're exactly right, you've won this prize. And she gave me a wooden chest. You remember this?
I do. I remember like it was yesterday.
Like it was yesterday, yeah.
It was the first of many psychic experiences we were to have.
The 2024 site.
Exactly. We had a client who had these 2 adorable little identical twin boys. They were like 3 or 4 years old at the time. They were these remarkably psychic, telepathic little boys, and they had freaky psychic experiences when they were little. I remember that the mother told us once about how the boys at night, they would read them bedtime stories, and they started to point at the ceiling and say, Poppy, why are you flying? Poppy, Poppy, why are you flying? Mommy, why is Poppy flying? And the parents looked at each other like, oh my gosh, we didn't tell them their grandfather had just passed away, because they were afraid to tell them, they were so young, and they hadn't told them, and they were seeing their grandfather in another dimension crossing over. I have chills because it was so amazing, and they had many psychic experiences after that one, but that was something we wrote about in our book Psychic Intelligence, and they had obvious gifts, and they could even telepathically read their parents and read each other and know what their Christmas gifts were.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's hard to surprise them.
Kind of like us.
But it was an amazing story of very psychic children.
Who were some celebrities that were indigo children? Well, we were, and Katy Perry might be a good example of an indigo child.
Very much. Doesn't conform. Nonconformist for sure.
YouTuber Colleen Ballinger. Demi Lovato was probably indigo or crystal.
Taylor Swift, obviously. Adele. Very, very intuitive and very star-seedy. Lena Dunham, the actor and producer. Lena Dunham. Girls. The show Girls.
She might be a little more crystal.
Yeah,
but,
a little bit. But
very
there's
rebellious.
crossover.
Yeah, there is a crossover into the other types of light worker children. Lady Diana was a very famous indigo, I feel.
Absolutely. Here to change the status quo of the monarchy, really shook things up, led some very powerful charitable causes.
She had a lot of courage in the face of persecution, and she really brought the monarchy into a more modern era.
Yes, very good point. Lady Diana is a powerful example of an indigo from the 90s, and unfortunately she was killed, and we don't think it was an accident, but she was killed because she just didn't conform to the system, to the monarchy, to the current system, the way it was being run in London. And for many, many years, now they even did change things because of her. They changed the protocol and they modernized it quite a bit.
Well, really, bottom line is all light workers and indigo children are here to work together for peace, world peace, and love and understanding. And so we're hoping humanity will awaken, to a higher level of consciousness and understanding and love and peace. And we've devoted our entire lives to world peace, as you know. And so we really hope that that's the outcome ultimately.
Yeah. The common desire of all psychic children, rainbows, crystals, indigos, is to help heal the planet, awaken the planet to what they may not be aware of, what adults are not being able to see, or maybe they've forgotten the truths that are out there. And we help to do that, certainly teach about the truths that have been ignored or forgotten or covered up with ignorance and misinformation.
And you may be a psychic child and not be aware of it. So this is very common. So as you meditate and you open up your consciousness, you will realize, you may have the traits of indigo children, crystal or rainbow children. We see the bigger picture.
Yes.
Basically.
Absolutely. We unveiled the invisible truths that are now shaking up society quite a bit with the new administration especially. So if you have any of these qualities, don't be afraid. Don't believe anything you've been taught that it's evil or scary or spooky or something you shouldn't practice. It's very much of a gift, and indigos are really way showers. They're opening to a new way of thinking, a new consciousness on the planet. So I hope this has been a helpful overview of what indigo children are. We're going to talk about psychic children, rainbows, and crystals in our next video.
So you can read more about psychic children and indigos in our book Psychic Intelligence, which is kind of like the go-to psychic guide. It sort of covers every topic. It's for beginners as well as more advanced psychic people.
And we have a lot of quizzes and fun things you can do, exercises to develop your own abilities as indigos or crystals.
So make sure that you hit like and subscribe to our channel,
and we'll see you in the future.